everyone, it's Hannah Ross. Welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to show you what is on my iPhone. This is new to me. It is my iPhone 10 and I have just recently upgraded from a 6. So I'm not only going to show you what's on my new iPhone, but I'm also going to give you tips throughout this video to keeping a very minimal iPhone. So let's start off with the number of apps that I have. I have a total of 20 apps. There they all are, and they of course fit very comfortably on my home screen. And it's also worthy to note that I have 2 applications that I keep hidden away in my app library. And those 2 are the Find Your iPhone app and the App Store itself. So of course my first tip is going to be, if you do not regularly use an application, it does not deserve to go onto your home screen. You absolutely can hide it within that app library. Now, also a point of caution. It's a very good idea to go through this app library fairly regularly to make sure that you haven't forgotten about some apps, to make sure that they are all applications that you do need in your life, even if you don't use them super regularly. Now, I am constantly and consistently trying to reduce the amount of applications that I have. I actually did this video in 2022, so I did it a year ago. If you haven't seen that, I will link it up in the cards for you. And I believe I had 22 applications on my home screen, and I have now narrowed that down to 20. And honestly, in the future, I could see me having even less applications. Unless an application provides a great deal to my life, I am not going to keep it around. Now, of course, this is going to look very different for everyone. This is just my take on having a minimalist phone and having the most minimal amount of applications that I can. For you, you could have quadruple the amount of applications that I have and it's minimal. You could have only 4 applications and that works for you. For me, I have fallen on the sweet spot of around 20 applications that seem to really work well for me on my phone. So let's just go through them row by row, and let's start off with this bottom row here. This is my social row. So I have no social media per se. So this is all I have to interact with other people. So I have the little calling app, of course, that is the primary function of having a cell phone. But embedded within this is my contact list. So I don't feel the need to have an extra application for contacts. Also within that contacts list is the ability to FaceTime someone. So I don't need another application just for FaceTime, especially because I don't actually tend to FaceTime people that often. I frequently use the Messenger video chat. So there's a lot of things that go on just in this little calling app, and for me, I don't mind having the minor inconvenience of like clicking on 2 things to, get to FaceTime someone. I would much prefer to have less digital and visual clutter on my home screen and go through that extra step. So moving on to the right now, we have the messaging app, which is a little self-explanatory. Again, one of the primary functions of having an iPhone. And then moving on, I have the WhatsApp application. This is a new one for me. So I was very hesitant to downloading this at the beginning when I moved here, but I came to the realization that it very much improved the quality of my life and the ability to access information and people. I'm also on this like really cool mommy group here, and I see a lot of like used baby goods. So it's just an invaluable application for me to have here, and I very much have been happy with the decision to download it. Let's just say that. And then moving on to the last one in my social row, and that is just the Messenger app. So this is like Is it social media? I don't think so because I don't have Facebook. This is really just meant to communicate with my friends and family. Back home, WhatsApp is not a very common method of communication. It is really Facebook Messenger for my friends and family in Canada. And with that last application, the social row, as I like to call it, is done. I also have this specifically down by the bottom because I use these 4 applications so much all the time, probably more than any other application. So I like to have them down here by the bottom. Plus, again, I'm gonna repeat myself, a lot of these are the primary functions of having this cell phone, so it kind of makes sense that they are down at this most easily accessible bar. Next up, let's move all the way to the top of my phone, and that is what I call my utilities row right here. So I have my settings, the clock, a calculator, and a camera. Other than the settings, the other 3 applications are all things that would have been physical items in my home that my phone has replaced. So I do not have a clock, nor an alarm clock. I do not own a calculator, and yes, I own the camera that I'm recording on right now for YouTube, but if I did not have YouTube in my life, absolutely this would be the only camera that I would need. So moving from my utility row up top here, down 1, this is what I call my productivity row. So I actually never used to have an iPhone. I believe this old iPhone 6 was my first iPhone that I had, or my second iPhone. I never was an iPhone gal because they weren't compatible with Google a long time ago. And let me tell you, I am a Google gal. So as you can see, I have Google Docs right here. I have my Google Drive, I have my Gmail, and I have my Google Calendar. And like I said, those all together are my productivity applications. Each one is on there for a very specific reason. You might be asking like, okay, well, if you have the Docs, why don't you have, Google Excel or the Google PowerPoint, application? And that's because I don't use them. I really only use on a day-to-day basis the Google Docs application. So I decided to just keep that one. But that being said, I need my Google Drive to access everything. I might save a PDF to my Google Drive, and everything is organized really specifically within my Drive. So I need this Drive application as well. Next up is Mail, my Gmail app. And most people would think twice about this, but I'm Hannah Ross, so of course I do. And at first I was like, do I really need this application? This is something that I could open on a web browser. But the fact of the matter is, I want an actual notification when I get an email for business purposes. It might be something of an urgent nature that I need to respond to fairly quickly, so I want that notification to come on my phone. If not, I would probably be like obsessively checking my Gmail 10 times a day through the web browser app, so it's actually more convenient for me to have the physical application of Gmail. And then next up is just my Google Calendar. My friends, I live off my Google Calendar. I don't know what to tell you. I find my phone is on me fairly frequently, so it just works so well to pop in everything I need to do onto this Google Calendar right away. So of course I love and rely heavily on having this Google Calendar application on my phone. The next row is what I like to call my going outside row. But then we also have the addition of the Notes app at the end, so it's a little bit of a culmination. So let's start with the going outside applications. We have the weather app. Not really necessary somewhere like Cancun. Honestly, I could delete this. It's like 28 and sunny every single day or 30 and sunny every single day. But somewhere like Nova Scotia, where we are from back home, you need the weather app because the weather changes drastically, sometimes even within a day. So it is really nice to have that application ready to go just to ensure you're wearing like the right outfit outside. Next up is Google Maps, and again, it's just an essential if I'm going anywhere. I also rely very heavily on this application as well, and I much prefer Google Maps, just a personal preference for me, over the Apple Maps. I really like the Google, so I use it very frequently. And then the third and final going outside application is actually Didi right here, and that is how we get around in Cancun. As always, I was hesitant to download the Didi app just because I don't like any new applications. I like to keep things minimal, but wow, we rely so heavily on this. I use it multiple times a day. If I need to get anywhere, Didi is the app that I go to, so I really am grateful that I ended up downloading it. And finally on that row is just my Notes app right here, and it is like tied with Google Calendar for most used apps. So yes, I rely very heavily on the Notes app. I have multiple running lists all the time. Even if I get a YouTube video idea, I will just pop it in my Notes app if I am on the go. But what I really want to note with the Notes app is that it doesn't really go with these, you know, heading out into the real world apps. It actually falls more into the productivity line, I would say, but it's on this like furthest right edge. So I prioritize the apps that I use all the time on this furthest right edge. So if I have 5 productivity apps, which I do have, including the Notes app, I will definitely pop this one, the Notes app, that I use all the time, over to the right. Same with Google Calendar, over to the right. Same with my camera, over to the right. And of course, Safari as well is my other most used app. So not everything is going to come in perfect sets of 4 across these rows. So I will just push the most used applications over to the right. And speaking of not having a perfect row, this is my completely miscellaneous final row here, and we have my wallet, we have a baby tracker, we have my photos application, and just the Safari web browser. So my wallet I used to find very convenient because I would have like 10 cards and they were all on my wallet instead, but now I've really narrowed it down to only needing 2 cards, like 2 point cards, and I'm not comfortable yet with putting my debit card or my credit card on the wallet, so I don't use it for that function. So this is an app that I could see me getting rid of potentially in the future, but for now it's fine, and it does have those few cards that I want to access. And then again, miscellaneous is a baby tracker. I heard that this was a really good application. This one right here, come into focus, let's go, there we go. I heard that this is a really good application. I actually heard Jess Conti on YouTube talking about it, so I thought that it would just be way easier to pop all of this information on my phone than try to keep like a diary or a journal to try to track all the things I need to for my newborn. And then the next application over is just my photos app. I debated whether to try to stick the photos up by the camera, but it really wasn't working, and I don't access my photos all too often. So it actually kind of does fall into a miscellaneous category for me. So that's why it's down at the bottom. And then beyond that, okay, this is where the greatest wisdom is going to come from. Here is my Safari web browser, again to the right because it's an app that I use all the time. And this is how to make your phone minimal. Take the extra step and go through your web browser of choice. I used to have probably double or triple the amount of applications, and once I figured out that it was just a little too convenient to check these things frequently, it was a little too convenient to get to YouTube, it was a little too convenient to check my banking all the time, I just mass deleted a whole bunch of applications that were acting more as distractions than in my best interest. And guess what? You can access them all on your web browser. Now, is it slightly more inconvenient? Sure. Are there some things that you can do on mobile applications that you might not be able to do on a web browser? Yeah, maybe. But for me, having like the simplicity of a really minimal phone, I don't mind sacrificing a little bit in those areas. So really what is left on my phone are the things that I am unwilling to go through a web browser for. Again, a good example of this was my email, my Gmail application. That's easily something I could go to a web browser for, but I prefer having the notification. So for the apps in general, some provide a lot of function. Some are actually just there as convenience. I'm very conscious of it, but they're just convenient applications to have. And then some even replace physical items that I would have in my home otherwise. But the baseline is that all of them are very, very intentional. I have thought about all of these applications and ensured that I had the most curated collection of applications that I could on my home screen. So speaking of home screen, let's swipe away from it now and let's swipe over to the right to my widgets. I don't have any widgets, as you can see. And that is for a very specific reason. I keep my phone so minimal that there's no need for widgets for me. I find the application itself the widget. I don't need my photos in like 6 places on my phone. It's totally sufficient to me to just have them in this one application. I also like having this screen just like completely clear and clutter-free. And then swiping to the left, we have my app library, which I also try to keep really under control. I actually don't like how cluttered this app library looks, but you can't delete it, and the silver lining to the app library, in my opinion, is kind of having those hidden apps like I mentioned. So it is functional, but again, I think this is much more something that would be reserved for people with a ton of applications that you can go and search for the exact one that you need. Not the case for me, but I'll find the silver lining to it. And then next up is just the control center. And I do not have much on my control center at all. Everything from focus up, so everything from here on up is not changeable. The only thing that you can change are down here. And I just have the flashlight and the screen recording app, or sorry, I think they're a widget, excuse me, but that is because I don't have anywhere else to access that flashlight. I don't have an app for it, and same thing with the screen recording. Those are the only 2 places within that control center that I can access those phone functions, so those are the only 2 that I keep. I actually used to have the camera and the calculator, but again, I just realized I don't need duplications of these apps. I don't need to be able to access them in multiple places. So if you are someone with a minimalist phone, or you are trying to have a more minimal phone, that is another huge piece of advice for me. Delete the duplicates. Even if you're someone who really does like to go to the control center, let's say, to access the calculator. Okay, great. Well, then you can take the calculator and hide it from your home screen and just put it into your app library. So just trying to ensure that there's not a lot of these duplicates all over your phone, which clutters it up really easily and really quickly, is one way to minimize your iPhone. All right, my friends, well, that's it. We have gone through my entire iPhone 10. I showed you probably in greater detail than I needed to every last little thing that is on my iPhone and why. And once I think of these things once I do a good overhaul of my phone, I don't need to think about them again. So I dedicate a lot of time and a lot of energy to setting up and organizing my iPhone, and then after that, I don't think about it whatsoever. And yeah, I just like to keep my phone very, very minimal. I am definitely someone who, like, digital clutter directly correlates to brain clutter and stress. So I really try to reduce the amount of digital clutter whilst accessing the benefits of having a smartphone. And this was the happy medium that I fell on. 20 applications works perfectly fine for me. So I hope that you enjoyed following along with what is on my minimalist iPhone. And if you did happen to like this video, then feel free to give it a like. If you like me, if you like the content that I'm producing on this channel in general, then definitely consider subscribing. It would truly mean the world to me. Alright everyone, well just thank you so much for being here, and I really hope to catch you in my next minimalism video. Bye for now everyone. Bye!